get them to speak though, we'll just jump straight to that video that I mentioned so we can all get on the same page about the story of this project. Except we can watch it.
Micro, small and medium-sized enterprises with the right set of skills and knowledge and tools to assess the risks and to plan to avoid the risks that their enterprises may face in cases of natural disasters.
If we are really serious about enhancing livelihoods as one of our sustainability goals, then we must also think about business continuity planning to protect us from the impact of these disasters and emergencies. SMMEs in particular, because they are those that are highly impacted by calamities. So again, this program is all about protecting our livelihood. It's about being prepared. It's about planning ahead. And it's about being in control and not a victim of uncertainty.
Ready na. Tuligan naman sa bahay. Ready na naman. Dito na naman i-plaster ang mga utang item naman.
Pero dyan po sa seminar natutunan ko, responsibilidad pala ng nagnegosyo. Ang kaagalo ko sa amin ito sa pagkain. Grocery po kasi negosyo namin.
Yeah, good. So first up, I'm going to invite Dawn from HLA to share with us a little about an overview really of the range of partnerships that have come together under this business continuity initiative and kind of help us understand how things really got started and also how they've evolved over time, particularly from pilot through to moving towards a bigger scale than originally started. So thank you, Dom. And I'm going to hand this to you. Shouldn't move, remember that. With big green button, if you would like to click forward on the couple of slides that you have ready. Thanks, Dom.
Good morning, everyone. Maybe let me quickly introduce my organization, the Humanitarian Leadership Academy. This is a very young global organization set up to facilitate partnership and collaborative opportunities to enable people around the globe to prepare for and respond to crises in their respective countries. We currently work with a variety of partners globally and in the academy centers with the intention to democratize access to quality humanitarian learning for humanitarian workers, may they be professionals or volunteers, and also organizations working in humanitarian context. So we work with these organizations to make sure that learning materials or products are available to humanitarian workers and organizations to be able to more quickly and effectively respond to disasters when they happen. So we are both a charity and a social enterprise. As a charity, we are able to provide a wide variety of free learning products through our online platform, Kaya Connect. So Kaya Connect has at least 350 courses in it. You can start exploring afterwards and see if there is any interest in any of these courses. These are all given free as part of our charitable offer. We are also able to work with local partners, especially in academy centers, to develop more contextualized learning programs for our targeted audiences and make them available either purely online so that people can take those courses in their own time, or in blended formats, a mix of online and face-to-face, or purely face-to-face. So as a social enterprise, we have an array of services that we can offer to learning providers, whether public or private, at cost. And whatever we generate from these services in terms of income or cost recovery, we use them to sustain our charity work. So that's, in short, the Humanitarian Leadership Academy. So going back to the program that was presented in the video, I think it all started in London when we were being loans as a charity, as a separate charity institution, because the Humanitarian Leadership Academy was incubated by Save the Children UK, and then we eventually registered as a separate charity in the UK. So as early as 2015, I think discussions between Unilever Global in the UK and the Humanitarian Leadership Academy started. I think it was brokered by Save the Children, of course, because there was an existing relationship already by then between Save the Children and Unilever. So they were looking at Unilever's globally known sustainable living plan. I think this is an award-winning program for as a corporate social responsibility initiative of Unilever. And they were initially thinking of how they can, part of that program, how they can support effective recovery post-disaster. Of course, the Humanitarian Leadership Academy was also suggesting that Unilever should look at it from the perspective of preparedness. So to cut the story short, I think they made an agreement to run an initial pilot in the Philippines involving at least 1,000 business representatives coming from micro, small, and medium enterprises, 50% of which will be coming from the Unilever value chain in the country. So the other 50% will be identified by the Humanitarian Leadership Academy and all our other partners in that program. So we implemented that program. What should I?
The green one, yeah. Next. There's your overall goal.
Okay, I think the vision for the program was very well articulated in the video. It's really getting small businesses prepared for disruptions that are brought about by natural and human-induced hazards, making sure that they can get back up to business quickly and continue providing the much-needed services to people during emergencies. We will, for purposes of this discussion, we will call it the phase 1. That's the 2016-17 program. This was the pilot that was supported by Unilever Global. So we were working with, of course, obviously Unilever Philippines and the University of the Philippines Institute of Small-Scale Industries, and then the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation. PDRF is one of the foundations being bankrolled by some of the big businesses in the country. UPISSI is attached to, this is an institute attached to the University of the Philippines doing small-scale enterprise development kind of courses. Unilever helped us with the identification of participants. As I've said, 50% of the participants were to come from their value chain. And of course, the Unilever Global gave funding initially for the pilot. So the University of the Philippines, ISSI, was tapped by PDRF to conduct the trainings for MSME leaders and representatives. We were able to run 40 training batches under the pilot. As I've said, about 1,000 business leaders were trained. PDRF was particularly tapped to help with developing the curriculum for the training. Of course, they were assisted by the University of the Philippines, ISSI, to do that work. And they were responsible for making sure that the 40 training runs will happen within the pilot period without any delays or issues. No? So that's how the pilot went. As you have seen in the video, I think we were able to indeed train as a result of that 1,000 participants plus 25 trainers because As early as that time, we were looking at how do we sustain this in the longer term beyond the funding support from Unilever Global. So I think one of the ideas then was to train more trainers, more professional trainers that can continue doing the training after the pilot. But before that initial pilot came to an end, we kind of developed a sustainability and scale-up strategy because we know that the program was doing well, but of course, training 1,000 representatives from MSMEs does not really contribute a lot. If you look at the total universe of MSMEs in the Philippines, it's about 1 million. So 1,000 is a very small dot in the whole universe. So what do we do to sustain the gains of the pilot? So we came up with 2 tracks of how to scale it out. First, we will continue supporting training of more MSMEs. We said we can talk to local government units, aware that local government units have financial resources. So it's a potential, we can potentially leverage resources from local government units to continue training MSMEs in their respective localities. That's how we got into an initial partnership with the province of Cebu, where BALTS represents. And then part of that track is also trying to continue leveraging resources from funding agencies, of course. So if we can raise more resources, then we can speed up the scale up. But one of the elements of that track would be policy influencing and advocacy, because we thought that we feel that in the Philippines there are lots of opportunities to make the policy environment more how do you call this? More supportive to the promotion of business continuity in the country. So we're looking at both at the level of local governments and at the national level. And then what happens if there will be increased demand because of these initiatives? How do we cope with, for example, providing the training that they will require as a result of policy advocacy? So we thought of continuing expanding a pool of local trainers that can do training in their respective localities in relation to business continuity management. And then we also thought of further professionalizing our own staff within the academy and some staff of our partners along business continuity management. So the second track of that sustainability strategy was to adapt the modules to different other audiences, like cooperatives, as Michelle mentioned earlier. And that's where the Cooperative Development Authority come in, represented here by Ma'am Ched. Because if business continuity management made sense for micro, small, and medium enterprises, it will also make sense for cooperatives, because most of these also do business. Of course, Ma'am Ched will be able to expound a little bit afterwards about the collaboration we have with them. We're also we also saw the need for local government units themselves as service providers, immediate service providers after an emergency happens. The need for service continuity planning within the LGU itself. Because, for example, what happens when the famous Haiyan hit Tacloban City, I'm sure many of you are aware of that. The local government unit was also hit hard, that they cannot continue providing services to their constituents within a few days. So the national government has to come in and provide the services that the people needed. So with that experience, we realized that even local government units and other service institutions also need some kind of business continuity, or more appropriately called service continuity or public sector continuity within those institutions. So I think I can stop there.
Yeah, thank you, Don. That's a terrific introduction, and hopefully you can see the clear evolution from a pilot just with business to incorporating these much wider audiences. So thank you. And also the origins, that it starts with a relationship a long way away and then becomes local and then finds its own energy and begins to grow with what's happening locally. So thank you very much. What I'm going to do now is ask the rest of the panel to introduce themselves. Can I ask you to just keep it to 1 or 2 minutes where you introduce yourself and your organisation and the key focus of your organisation? But then what was your interest in joining this partnership? Yeah, because Don has kind of alluded to your roles a bit. So maybe just really help us understand why you thought this was a good thing to get involved in. I'm going to invite Mercedes first to speak about CDA. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning. The Cooperative Development Authority is an agency, the lead agency for regulating and developing cooperatives in the country. It was, there is a provision in our constitution that cooperatives are instruments for achieving social justice, equity, and economic development. Hence, there was a law passed, the Twin Law, the Co-op Development Code, and the creation of the agency, which is the CDA, in 1990. And so, but in 2015, we already celebrated our centennial of the Philippine Co-op movement in the Philippines. The interest, so what does it do? It regulates, it registers all cooperatives in the country, and it regulates, supervises, and develops the cooperatives. You know, as they are registered, they are young, and so there needs to be a development function. As Michelle mentioned it, we have about 26,000 or 600 registered co-ops of all types, and with a membership base of like 13, 14 million. And you would understand it's all over the country. Cooperatives are social enterprises. They are into credit, consumer store, water, housing, agriculture co-ops, and some others. So that the interest in partnering with the Chile, when we encounter the Chile, is that when they ask us what cooperatives are doing in terms of responding to disasters and emergencies, they are into it because they are in the communities, they are community-based, but they are more on the relief and that. But they are more than in the relief because they are responding, they are providing services, a lot of services, then they are into rehabilitation and recovery. But what interests us is we have to prepare the cooperatives to be back to business once they are hit also. They're not excused, no? Especially that 90% are micro. When we say micro in the Philippines is 3 million asset below, the small is 3 to 15, the medium is 15 to 100, and the largest 100 up. That is the SME category of enterprises in the Philippines. And while co-ops are in that SMEs, they have a distinct and unique role. They are not just any enterprise. They are owned by their members and governed by their members. So the interest there is that we came into like the blended module because we cannot have them, you know, cooperatives, more of them are in the rural areas and they don't have access more to IT because it's online, then we made it a blended. We cannot do away with the face-to-face. At least there should be interaction. And the interest there for a sustainability there is to build a community of learning experience among the cooperative movement, how we can sustain or how we can enhance further this BCM or BCP from the experience. And that is what we are contributing, or the value addition of this partnership, because as we said, co-ops are unique. And in the long run, we would like to integrate this into the quality management system of the agency itself. And the agency itself, we are in 15 regions, extension offices, to have also their BCPs. Because, you know, the institution is also part of that system. And later, maybe we're thinking of really putting a program, which we call Building Resilient Co-ops. We are in the discussion how we can do that. Maybe a certification system where that can be provide motivation and incentive for co-ops who are into this. And we are, by legislation, we're thinking of putting up a cooperative college. It's like a harmonized, united Philippine co-op education system in the country, because that is the key. And the BCP could be a very good course to be incorporated, even in the business courses in the education in the Philippines. This is about the partnership, and we really look forward to continued partnership with HLA, as our learning there is how to use technology. You know, their online courses are very simple, easy to understand, and they are providing access. That's, I think, the best that HLA is doing, is providing access. Thank you.
Excellent. We'll get into some of those exciting things a bit more momentarily, but let's call on JJ from Code. Tell us a bit about why Code is in this partnership, JJ.
All right, good morning, Michelle. And well, you gave a pretty good introduction about Code. So Code is the largest coalition of CSOs in the Philippines. We make up 12 total of member networks. There are 6 national networks and then 6 sub-national networks, making up a total of 1,600 organizations. So Code's main focus is CSO good governance, public participation, peace and multiculturalism, land reform, and of course, disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation. So our DRR portfolio actually started in around 2012. So that's 6 years ago, and then we started with another partner first. We had Christian Aid as our partner, and they're still supporting our program called Advancing CSO Engagement in DRR. And we saw in the 4 years that the program has been running that there is still somewhat a lack of capacity in our CSOs in responding to disaster. And of course, the need for service continuity planning, because we found in one disaster response we had during Typhoon Haiyan, we could not, some of our organizations were not able to respond because they were the ones hit by the disaster itself. So that was a problem, and we had no continuity plan for those scenarios. So HLA came in, they came into the picture first. They introduced us to service continuity planning or business continuity planning. And then aside from that, they were able to also introduce us to an innovative way of training our civil society organization partners. And that was through Kaya Connect. They were able to give us a way to answer the challenge differently. From our capacity building interventions that we have been using for 4 years through face-to-face training, we're going to try this blended learning approach to training, and that's the name of our project with HLA, the blended learning approach to strengthening DRRM. So I guess I'll talk about it later with Michelle. So there.
Thank you, that's excellent. And finally, Bumps. Can you share with us why Cebu Province has joined in this kind of partnership? It's a different kind of actor altogether. I'm sure many of you will be interested how do you draw government in? What's interesting for you in coming into a partnership with an organisation like HLA?
The Cebu provincial government in the Philippines is also trying to reflect how we can accommodate NGOs, CSOs, especially the business group. We have this very strong partnership, and one of the visions of the Cebu provincial government is to ensure that we can maximize the resources, be it human resources, technical resource coming from the different organizations. And we found out that the humanitarian leadership academy fits to what we want. And if there are business continuity plans and management, there has to be a service continuity management, meaning there is no stopping of services. Since the government is there playing a crucial role, not just in terms of response and preparedness, but to ensure that there are avenues where the enabling environment in that particular province in Cebu can provide the avenues where people, where businesses, where institutions can continue serving. So the idea is to ensure that we can never experience the same failure that we had during the Yolanda or the Typhoon Haiyan that hit the Philippines. Lots of institutions failed, and there was chaos. No? So while the businesses want to provide services or continue their services, we want also to ensure that capacity building for the CSOs, for the NGOs, for the business groups, most especially for the cooperatives, are there. So this is a kind of continuing service provision to our partners. So we want Cebu to be resilient, we want to be partners, and we want to collaborate more.
Excellent. Well, it's very important work, obviously, for a country that's prone to being struck by disasters, right? Just really quickly, it sounds very exciting. What are you most proud of so far? I know it's quite early days, but just in terms of having formed this and scoped out your work and getting started, just really quickly, does anyone have something that comes to mind? What are you most proud of so far in forming these partnerships?
I think it's very important for us is this, my appreciation is building a community of learning and learners from different actors. And since in the Philippines, as mentioned by Babs, cooperatives are into, there are a lot of mechanisms, like in the LGU, there are co-op development councils, so co-ops also play there, and so they're also interested. And then also in businesses, cooperatives also participate in like Chamber of Commerce because they have different, especially the big ones. So there is a very good neat and collaboration already of the different sectors. And it is actually is a very, I think it is a catalytic in business continuity planning.
Thank you. Anyone else? Quick comment on something you're proud of?
I think the one thing we're proud of and to showcase in this partnership is the new online learning modules that we've developed with the Humanitarian Leadership Academy. It's because it's very new to the CSO sectors that we're doing different designs, like we're actually using comics to teach DRR in that module. So just to share, while making it, I thought that HLA would find it preposterous because it's very different, very new. But then when we presented it on the first run,